Okay, I'll kick us off with the first one. So, yesterday, I think it was yesterday, all of these daily wealth chats are blending into the same one. But it's digital, 3D printing, I think, is going to be huge. Not just construction 3D printing, which is what I mentioned the other day, where you can print a house in literally hours, or a small town in literally days. I mean, that's going to be good in itself. But more on the sort of the domestic side of 3D printing. Now, unfortunately, with 3D printing, I think it's going to be pretty hard to own this market, because you will need hundreds of millions to properly execute it, which is why I think Amazon is going to pivot again. So if you look back, I forgot what year it was, e-ink was made, I think, in fact, I don't know the year, but a long time ago, at least a decade or so ago, some company made e-ink, the ink that Kindle uses. And obviously Amazon were like, ooh, this looks good. And they saw that their whole online bookstore thing could be ruined with this e-ink. So Amazon had to effectively pivot. And so they chopped off pretty much an arm of their whole business by going all in on e-ink. And they wanted to literally own the whole, e-ink type industry. And that's why they plowed loads of money into the Kindle. And they got out Kindles, as in the first Kindle, to as many people as possible at pretty much cost price, because they just wanted to own the market. So Amazon would then become, the hub spot of, ebooks, so to speak, for Kindle. And they did that really well, to the point where if any ebook these days is most likely going to be a Kindle. And if you want, an ebook, you've got to go to Amazon. So that was their first pivot, which was really well. And if I was Bezos right now, or the C-suite in Amazon, I'd be looking at home 3D printing, because people are. Hi, Carl. By the way, I'll come to yours in a sec. I'll just finish this Amazon bit off. So people are getting sort of very impatient. Okay, so we have Amazon Prime, so we get it within a day, which is amazing, but people want it sooner. So there's drone delivery, which they're already doing in parts of the world where you get it in hours. But eventually people are going to want stuff straight away without waiting a day. And so what I think will happen is that Amazon will have to pivot into the world of home 3D printing. So they'll probably create this really good 3D printer, probably the size of your microwave or an oven, something that size, and they'll try and get that into every house they possibly can. And a part of the Amazon website will be, home 3D printing stuff. So if you wanted a new hammer, for example, instead of waiting a day to get a hammer through Amazon, you would simply download the schematic of that hammer from Amazon, and your Amazon 3D printer will just print it out straight away, and it will cost you £1 as opposed to £10 on Amazon, and all sorts of other stuff like that. And then what will probably happen is that printer will be automatically connected to your Amazon account. So when it's running low on print, a print cartridge or whatever it will be, you'll then just get a delivery of new print cartridges and stuff like that. So if you want new bin bags or whatever, they can print it. So I think Amazon will probably go that way. I don't know how we, as the average Joe, would ever get into that market, but it's something to be aware of. I mean, you could sell 3D printing schematics if you're that way inclined. I mean, Carl, hey mate, what do you have to share today?
Can you hear me? Hi,
yeah.
Simon.
Hey.
Simon. You alright?
Yeah.
The sound is a little bit pants, so hopefully you can hear me all right.
Yeah, loud and clear.
I'm staggered by 3D printing technology. I mean, I think, is it true that SpaceX use it for some parts of their rockets?
And Tesla.
Yeah, and Tesla. I mean, it's just phenomenal. I mean, I don't even understand the technology behind it, to be honest. I don't, understand half the applications. Although, first time I saw a 3D printer was probably about 7 or 8 years ago, something like that. I used to work for a rather large TV craft shopping channel, and one of our buyers brought one in, and we were toying with the idea of putting it on TV to try and sell it to some of the craft audience. I think it was about £500 for this thing, and nobody had a bloody clue how it worked.
Yeah.
I just think the whole technology is remarkable. But just more generally on the development of tech and products, and the examples you just sort of cited with Kindle, it's been the case, I think, throughout history that it's not always the best technology that wins out. You know, it's the market, it's the dominant player in the market that has the power to either bring the product in quickest or the power to stifle out the competition.
Yeah.
So I mean, if you look at the famous battle between Beta and VHS in the 1980s, Beta was, you know, hands down the best device at the time.
Yeah.
But who was going to pay £1,000 for a VCR when you could have something which the majority of customers would do the same job for £400?
Yeah.
You know, it was just no brainer. You know, for the mass market. I think that's probably. It's probably going to be a feature where you have got the huge players in the tech arena. They're going to be very protective over their trademarks, the technologies.
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily healthy when you've got that level of dominance. And invariably, the sort of smaller companies that, you know, have got sort of low capitalization values, they'll get quickly eaten up by the big players that want to buy the tech.
Yeah.
And then invariably that'll probably stifle all of the good stuff that's coming up from these sort of young entrepreneurs, because they'll want to go out and develop something new. I think probably the best era for development, you know, of things which probably benefited mankind was probably during the 50s and 60s, when you had the arms race and the space race between the Russians and the Americans. I mean, you have to look at the technological advances that happened then, and all of the things that then filtered and flowed through into the consumer markets from the military markets. So that's my take on it, really.
Yeah. And do you have any sort of potential ideas or future plays that you're looking out to do?
I bloody wish so. I mean, my background is essentially retailing, buying, marketing, retailing, e-commerce, if you will. It's changed a lot in the 20 or so years that I've been involved in the industry. From a logistics point of view, not a lot really has changed. Well, I mean, I suppose in terms of getting product from A to B, it's not really. It's just the speed of delivery and execution, and the customer service aspect has massively changed over the years.
Yeah.
The fundamentals of customer service remain the same, really. You know, it's about communication, it's about price, it's about quality. So I think any innovations that can come with that, you know, are obviously going to be jumped on by the big players. But, you know, you mentioned the company at the start of the conversation. Amazon really has led the way, you know, for many, many years. Everyone else is really playing catch up. So,
yeah.
And I'm in the Amazon space as far as what I do. So, yeah, it's not a bad place to be at the moment.
Yeah, and the amount of businesses that have popped up on top of Amazon as well. It will be the same with, you know, with the 3D printing world. When they own that, you'll be able to set up your own 3D printing business on top of their whole infrastructure. It's
what I found really interesting is conversations that I had with people, you know, 5-10 years ago around Amazon. Suppliers that used to come in to see me, they were very, very scared of Amazon and what they were going to do, and that they were going to put them out of business. Yeah. And what you see now is Amazon are kind of certainly on the, you know, on Amazon marketplaces anyway. I know they've got the finger of many, many pies, but on the marketplace, the retail side, they are positioning themselves as the place for big brands, you know, and it's kind of a double-edged sword, because you could say, well, Amazon are going to exploit you and they're going to offer you peanuts for your product. In return, you're going to get, you know, you're going to get exposure to their huge customer base, but you're never actually going to be able to control it. But what you can do is you can control your brand on there, because one way or another, Amazon are going to get their hands on your product. Yeah. As they always do. So you're better off going in there. And, you know, there are some big brands on there now who have effectively, they're embracing the fact that Amazon have got all these customers and they're forced to work with them. So you got Lego, Adidas, all these big brands on there, and it's just a place really where customers are. So yeah. You can't ignore them.
No, exactly. Oh, well, thanks for that. Does anyone here want to pop the hand up and grab a mic to see if there are any opportunities that you're looking at or any future ideas? Remember, folks, like, everyone's so freaking protective of ideas when they really shouldn't be. Ideas are worth nothing. Like, everyone seems to think, I'm never going to tell anyone my $1 billion idea because someone's going to steal it and do it. They're not. Trust me. Ideas are worth like less than 1%. If you had proper $1 billion idea and went to, I don't know, Apple or someone that could execute it, they would pay you less than 1% of what they would end up making. It's all about implementation and execution. That is it. So I'm more than happy to share all of my future business ideas and stuff because I know that no one's going to do it. And even if people do, so what? You just carve out, like, we need to stop having like a limited mindset. We are in an abundant world pretty much in most things. And so what if someone takes your idea and run with it? I mean, geez. Like I have a trading community, and over the last 8 years, I can count at least 25, 30 students who have never traded before, done my course and community, etc. They learned how to trade, and then they bugger off and set up their own trading education business, which is just completely wrong, seeing as though they've been trading for less than a year or whatever. But it happens. Like, competition happens. But at the end of the day, I don't really care about competition. So does anyone have any ideas that they'd like to share or things that they're going to be doing? Oh, hey, Tom. I know you're in the property space. You're another Norwich bloke. Do you see anything in the property space that you're eyeing up? No worries if you don't want to talk. I don't want to put anyone in the spot. Also, those on Facebook Live, I can't see any comments coming through. Normally I see a whole stream of comments, and at the moment I don't see anything. I don't know if it's because there's a massive lag, because my internet's so pants. I just can't wait till Starlink sends me bloody internet. Oh yeah, Carl?
Yeah. I was going to say, I put a comment on there about 5 minutes ago, so if you haven't seen it yet, there's probably some lag somewhere.
Okay. Yeah, no, I definitely haven't seen it. So, until then, anyone on Clubhouse want to pop their hand up and say hello? Because failing that, I'm just going to get... I can't see any questions. Okay, so what I'll do, I've just opened up another browser, so I'm going to have to look at the questions that way. So Sam Waterhouse says, dark kitchens for me. What does that mean? Dark kitchens for business. I have no idea what that means. Okay. So, here's another idea. IoT Sensors. So this is something which I think will be a relative... In fact, this isn't even a future thing that you could do. This is something you could do now, today. And there's two easy applications that we could do for farms and also factories. So let's take a farm, for example. Let's say you're somewhere in a hot country, let's say parts of America where you're a big old farm owner, you have hundreds if not thousands of acres of land, and it's agriculture. Okay, so you've got to keep that land watered nicely, and water is and also pesticides is a major cog for you, as in cost of goods sold. So it's a major outgoing for you, and so at the moment farmers have to pretty much willy-nilly just water everything as and when they need. However, you can already right now get Internet of Things sensors. So, there's a little sensor, sort of the size of your thumb, and in that sensor there'll be like GPS tracking. There'll be like stress and strain sensor, an accelerometer. There'll be a moisture sensor. You can basically, in a sensor the size of your thumb, you can fit so many different sensors in it. But the main one for this application would be for water purposes. So what you could do is you could approach this farmer and say, hey, let's do a no-win, no-fee type thing. Let's say your water bill is, I don't know, $1 million a year. I don't know, let's say it's a big farm, and this farm is spending $1 million per year. And you can say, look, I have a whole bunch of these sensors. What I'm going to do is I'm going to bury all of these sensors, probably, I don't know, 6-10 foot down, all over your farm. Okay, I'm going to put, I don't know, 5,000 sensors across your farm, and all of these sensors will be connected up to an app, the internet, an app of some sort, and your iPad, you'll be able to see all the data you need across your whole farm, but mostly for moisture. So that way the farmer can then plan their watering based on which areas of their farm that needs the water. So instead of just having a set watering schedule, they can do, as and when is required. And so you could say, hey, look, I would just like 25% of your water savings. So if you can save them, I don't know, 250 grand a year, well, then the farmer's going to pay you, 25% of that. My brain can't do 25% of 250, 62.5 grand. So that could be an idea. Now, following that idea, it was actually... there's another idea which my brother-in-law accidentally gave me, if that made sense. So my brother-in-law wanted to get into thermal imaging. Okay, so I think he was looking for a career change, and he saw that there was a company that just did thermal imaging for factories. And so I don't know whether he did it or not, but I think he was looking at buying a big old 10-20 grand thermal imaging rig, and also to do something like a 5 or 10 grand thermal imaging qualification or something like that. And this business that he was looking to buy, basically it was an old bloke with a IR camera, thermal imaging camera, and every now and then, like, I don't know, once a month or once a quarter, would go to a factory and just start thermal imaging the whole factory, looking for hotspots. Now, hotspots are crucial for factories because, things break. I mean, if you have a big factory, so like Kellogg's in the UK, or any of these big biscuit factories, or any big food factory, like if there's like a line disruption, they lose, or depending on the size of the business, they can lose up to £100,000 per minute of the machinery being broken. So they actually spend a lot of money in preventative measures. So what you could do, again, going along the lines of these Internet of Things sensors, you could literally put a whole bunch of these sensors all over the factory. Okay, so in this case, it would be monitoring temperature, and I don't know. Let's say you had 1,000 sensors across this factory. It would all be reported to an iPad, which I know the lead engineer can have, and at any point in time, he could see all of the hotspots or growing hotspots in his or her factory. And you could set certain parameters. So if a level gets beyond a certain temperature and there's a certain cadence that's a slow, gradual increase or sharp spikes, the iPad will bing bong, and then all of a sudden the lead engineer can then fix the engine or the line before it breaks, etc., etc. Again, you could do that as a business and offer a percentage saving, or it's a bit tricky that, but yeah, just do a set thing. So. And that's not even a future idea. That's something you can do right now with existing technology and absolutely destroy the whole thermal imaging market. And there's a lot of businesses out there that do thermal imaging for companies, on like 10 to £50,000 a year contracts. You could hoover all of them up and say, hey, this company, you're paying, X company 50 grand a year for thermal imaging and stuff like that. I could do it for 20 grand a year. Deal? So there's all sorts of things. Does anyone here want to share anything? I'm going to have to refresh the browser on Facebook to see any comments popping up. Anyone here on Clubhouse want to say hello? No, I still can't see any comments, which is a shame. Anyone here on Clubhouse want to pop the hand up and share any emerging markets or future opportunities they're eyeing up?
Hi, I'm going to ping you a link. I'm going to ping you a link on Facebook, Siam. Just something did actually remind me. My cousin, who's is a self-employed IT consultant, he's actually just recently sold to the NHS, a red cell dosage calculator. So I'll send you a link so you can have a look at it.
Ah, okay.
That's probably the only thing that ticks the box I can think of.
Nice. Okay,
yeah.
cool.
So yeah, he's been developing it for a couple of years and trying to get through all the red tape with all of the NHS trusts. So he's finally cracked it in the last couple of months.
Yeah.
So that was a bit of a win for him.
That's cool.
So I'll send you a link so you can have a nose at it.
Thank you. Okay. And Tom, hey mate, you've got the mic.
Hey buddy, how you doing?
Yeah, good to hear from you, mate. What's happening in your world?
Well, fairly traditional stuff over here with land and property, but it's just throwing some ideas out around that. We're looking quite heavily at Norfolk and as it grows and develops out.
Yeah.
Some of the land obviously around here is very, very, very valuable and will continue to do so. So
yeah,
we're looking really as well at sort of living habits as well, what that looks like going forward, what the young people want in terms of their rental products, and also not forgetting the sort of gap in the middle really. There's sort of an emerging market of the sort of 40, 50-year-olds that actually want a bit more of an easy time. They're not fussed about maybe necessarily having home ownership. They want a bit more free time as well, and just sort of looking at what we can tailor towards that. We've done house share projects and things like that for the teenagers, but we actually think there might be some room in the market in the sort of the other sort of slightly older areas of the house share or the sheltered living for the elderly is quite popular, but I think there is a gap in the middle there somewhere. So it's just sort of throwing those ideas around. I haven't really had many people to talk to about it, but I think there could be some more kind of cooler bespoke buildings that pop up that are sort of tailored towards that market.
Okay, nice. And so how are you going to try and pounce on that? Like, what are you going to do to capitalise on that?
Yeah, absolutely. So currently we're building sort of more of a footing in the younger market. So we're going to get sort of more rooms and more buildings available in Norfolk for that.
Yep.
And then sort of master that sort of slice of the market, and then just sort of start adding and tailoring things to the next tier above that really, and then have a group that owns a bit of the pathway through essentially, so you can offer their sort of younger product, and then there's something for the next phase, and as you go through that way. So it's just looking at that. I mean, it's early days, but Norfolk in the market we're in, it's not particularly transient. There's lots of people that come here to settle, and I think they'd like an alternative, and I think the way that people live now, and the way that their sort of life cycles and stuff, they've got other opportunities of and way they want to live could be quite an interesting area to look at. So we're watching that. I mean, the McCarthy Stones of this world are still always going to be swallowing up chunks of land to build their bespoke offerings, but I think there is a gap there for something different.
Okay, nice. Oh, thanks for that.
No worries, mate.
Much appreciated. So,
no worries.
So another idea which has always been on my mind is drones. I mean, I like flying drones, as in FPV drones. But display drones, I think, are something which you can do. So I think China has got the world record for, I think, most amount of drones in the air for a display. And whether it was like 2,000 or 5,000 or whatever. But it's worth YouTubing drone firework display. And basically, you can have 500 odd drones, and you can basically put any picture you want in the air. So obviously you can do it to music, you can do it like a traditional firework, but I think that you've also got the advertising element there. So if there's a massive nighttime event or whatever, some company could literally, like Coca-Cola, could just go, right, I want the Coca-Cola name and logo in the sky for the next 2 hours, please. And there's big money in that, and it will just all be connected by it will all be autonomous. So you just simply program it in, boom, up you go. Obviously you need people to change batteries and stuff like that, and you can have longevity. So if you did get a contract like that for tens of thousands of pounds to put a logo in the air for 5 hours, you would simply put them up. Let's say you needed 250 drones to do that. You would simply stagger the drones, change the batteries, blah, blah, blah. So definitely definitely YouTube that. So that's an opportunity. I've mentioned the Tesla taxis and trucks before, so I'll just give it a quick mention for those that haven't heard of it. So long story short, when level 5 autonomy comes in, I'm going to be all over Tesla taxis. The Tesla 2 is coming out soon, so that's anticipated to be about $19,000. So it's going to be a very mass market, cheap electric car, probably 2-seater. And it will have level 5 autonomy. So in that, I'm just literally going to buy up, 30 to 50 of these mini Teslas and have my own little automated taxi company. And I'll be charging a tenth of what taxis do now. I could literally take out every taxi company in Norfolk, in a very quick period of time. So the average, I think in Norwich, the average taxi journey is something like £12.50 or something. It's something like that. I've got a spreadsheet on my computer somewhere. And so instead of charging £12.50 for that average type journey, I would be able to charge £2.50. And according to Elon Musk, each robo-taxi, as he has it, would net anywhere between $20,000 to $30,000 of revenue per year. Obviously, depending how busy or how often you pimped out your car. But that was for that estimate, he said, was for someone that was owning a car, but that was driving it at probably 10% of the time, and then renting it out for 90% of the time. So that's that. The other mention, which I'll be very quick because I have talked about this on previous Wealth Gen chats, is the B2B market, which is the haulage. So the average sort of running cost per articulated lorry in the UK is roughly £100,000 per truck. So that includes driver, diesel, oil, all that sort of stuff. Whereas you could just get a Tesla articulated lorry and it would be all autonomous. So I think the rough calculations I've done so far is that instead of spending £100,000 per year per truck, the cost will go down to like £10,000 a year, and it would just be battery charging costs. But then if you could completely offset that by having solar power. You could also build a solar power farm and also batteries. So then, if you did that as well, you'd get all sorts of tax credits because you're being really carbon friendly, and all your trucks will be free. So my little experiment that I'll do is I'll go and buy a haulage company with 10 articulated lorries. That and with 10 lorries, that's £1 million of costs per year. So what is that? £83,000 per month in costs, and I could then swipe that cost by sort of 70 to 80% overnight. Well, over a couple of months. So yeah, I've got on my phone here the comments for the Facebook Live. So I've just seen Peter Walton said, "When are you going to do this?" I'm going to do it as soon as level 5 autonomy is allowed in the US, and maybe the UK. Because obviously, if I did this, I wouldn't have to wait until it enters the UK. I could just simply set up my first test company in the US. I'm actually in the process of setting up a US company in Delaware for another project, but yeah, that's besides the point. So by the way, if you're going to set up a US company, set up in Delaware. You have the best tax. It's the most tax favorable place to set up a business. So that's that. So that's the Tesla sort of stuff. Drones, yeah. Any other suggestions before we call it a day for today?
On the Tesla taxi, do you think Uber have got any plans for that at all? Do you think they've already had the opportunity as well?
They are so screwed, it's ridiculous, honestly. So I've looked into this so much, and Waymo, Uber, and all that's pretty much any robo-taxi competitor, they're barking down the wrong tree because they're all going down the sort of the Waymo route, which is LiDAR. And it's you cannot do proper full level 5 autonomy with LiDAR because it can't read. It cannot read signs. It cannot read things. All it does is basically it's basically radar. It's pinging out lasers. It's receiving the reply back, and so yeah, it can it can detect a sign, but it won't be able to read the sign. And so when you look at driving, I mean, just look at every time just type Elon Musk LiDAR and look at all the interviews where he's talked about LiDAR, and you'll soon see when you look into it that LiDAR is the wrong approach. It's like having a horse-drawn cart and all of a sudden, an internal combustion engine vehicle has been made. But then everyone goes, no, the horse-drawn cart is the way forward. And what we're going to do is we're going to make the carriage way better. It's going to have a fridge inside the carriage. We're going to have some awesome rubber wheels with the horse-drawn cart. We're going to feed the horse some superfood so it drives longer. And obviously, in hindsight, we can see that they would be stupid things to do when the internal combustion engine vehicle obviously is the way forward. And so cameras are the way forward for level 5 autonomy. I mean, put it this way, humans drive cars relatively well, and all it is 2 cameras on a gimbal. That's basically it. It's your 2 eyes on a gimbal, which is your head or your neck connected to your head. And we can drive, somewhat safe with that. Whereas when you combine 8 very high definition cameras that understand video feeds like our brain understands video feeds, but they can see all the way around us. It's as good as having 8 people driving, all looking in every direction. But yeah, so what was the question? I forgot. So I went off on LiDAR. Oh yeah, Uber. Yeah, so Uber, I think they're going to pivot towards aerial taxis. So they're getting big into aerial taxis, which is really cool. I can't wait till we can order like a UAV to come and pick you up. I actually want one. So there's a few. I think it was not Cirrus. I forgot the name. But there's some sort of VTOL electric aircraft that are coming to the market over the next 2 to 3 years. Sort of 2 or 5-seater VTOL aircraft. So I'm thinking I'd just like to have one in the garden. So I simply go places. So instead of buying like a new Lambo, just buy a VTOL electric drone for yourself. That would be fun. So yeah, any other future ideas, emerging markets that people want to share or that people got their eyes on? Personally, for me, I'm not too interested in emerging markets. The only emerging market really that I'm going to focus on are crypto-based stuff, because you could basically take the whole world as it is, and every business model that you can imagine in right now, every conventional business and business model and business sector, and you can then go, right, can crypto, pivot or do things better? So you don't really need to look for new crazy business ideas. You can simply look at the existing incumbent world and see, is there a better way of doing it with a DLT of some sort, a distributed ledger technology. And there's loads. Honestly, there's loads. Estate agents are screwed. Every middleman is screwed. So, and I think people get the wrong end of the stick with fancy new business ideas, etc. At the end of the day, it's all about execution. So don't be chasing these billion-dollar ideas if you've never run a business or set up a business yourself, because a bad or inexperienced business owner will kill and do very badly with a great business idea. So we have Tanvir. Hey, how's it going? You have the mic.
Hi there. Yeah, really interesting subject title. I think there's so many ways to go with this, like in the world we live in.
Yeah.
Right, you've got AI, you've got genomics, crypto, China, like everything that's coming out of China, insurtech, all this stuff. So, I mean, what are you guys kind of riffing on at the moment? Is there a particular niche that you guys are kind of talking about?
No, we're talking about everything. We've spoken.
I'm just drawing. I don't want to.
Fair enough. Yeah, we've talked about everything from drones, 3D printing, autonomous driving, Internet of Things, sensors.
Okay.
We've talked about everything really, and also property. Yeah. So
I mean, I saw in your profile, just had a read. Sorry, you said you're doing like private equity investing in startups. I've thought about that as well in terms of the startup industry in London. Obviously, isn't flourishing as much as Silicon Valley. But I mean, what have you invested in any startups? What do you feel like? Do you feel like it's a good way to get returns?
Yeah, it is. It depends.
Just go networking.
It depends on who you are. As I said, like there's no point buying and selling businesses if you've never been a business owner before. And I have a very dim view of the whole sort of self-help world at the moment, where they're like, hey, buy a business, no money down, or buy a business for £1 and you'll make millions or whatever. And it's just attracting all of the wrong people. And you really should not be getting into M&A or investing in businesses or buying into other startups if you've never been in business before, because you're just going to ruin it. Like, honest, and I say this a lot, like, if you're an inexperienced business owner, you will ruin a good business. And I cannot stress that enough. So you have to do the full cycle. Set up, run, grow, and sell a business. That is the full business cycle. And you need to do that at least once. And then, because you'll learn so many things along the whole process, especially the selling part of the process. When you sell a business, it's incredibly stressful, and so many things can go wrong. And then when you've done that a few times, then perhaps, and if you've got a spare bit of capital, then get into investing in startups. But that itself is a minefield. I've just seen a comment from Peter Walton on the Facebook Live, and he said, "I think it's often best to focus on your current business and master it before exploring new opportunities." Thoughts? I completely agree, Peter. Yeah, I so agree. Like, I think I said yesterday or the day before in one of these daily chats, is that my personal just from hindsight, and hindsight is 2020 obviously, is that I would highly suggest that you do not be a magpie and look at all the shiny new things until your core existing business is consistently and stable at 20k a month net profit. At net profit. That's literally net. Because if you get to that point where you're doing 20k a month net profit, you most likely have a management team in place. You're not doing that much of the do, or you're very much removed from the business. And you need to maintain that. Whereas in the past, I've invested in or set up or bought other businesses prematurely, and then before you know it, your core business is failing. So yeah,
great point. Yeah,
hope
it's
that
very
makes sense.
Wise. Focus.
Thank you.
Just one more question.
Yeah,
Have you
go
heard
for it.
about what's her name? Kathy Woods with her genomics
Invest.
ETF.
Yeah.
She says that we're going into a future where we'll be able to edit the genome on such a level that we've never had before.
Yeah.
I don't know what your thoughts are about that. Do you think that could be a good area to invest in, or is it still too speculative?
Okay. So it's going to be an amazing industry. So basically, CRISPR is the thing that is the relative recent breakthrough, and CRISPR has basically enabled us to somewhat basically code our genomic system, if that makes sense. No, that's bad terminology. So like when you look at CRISPR and you sort of extrapolate the current progression with it, and be super pessimistic, and then just forecast our CRISPR capabilities over the next 15 years, it's actually really scary, to the point where you'll be able to literally edit your genome just like it's HTML. So if you're bored of having brown eyes and you wanted blue eyes, you could simply code up some RNA, and your body would then implement that, and then all of a sudden, over a couple of days or so, you'd now have blue eyes. You would literally be able to do anything, to the point where even Elon Musk says, when he talked about CRISPR, he said that the way that RNA and DNA works is basically, RNA is like the programming, sort of the messaging sort of part of your DNA, and if you can program your RNA properly, like, you'll be able to turn yourself like a human into a caterpillar if CRISPR got that good. And that's not me saying, that's Elon Musk saying that. So you can literally do anything. And so there's all sorts of stuff with CRISPR that, like, you'll be able to have, designer babies. Like, I want a baby that has blue eyes, long hair, awesome, athletic, never gets fat, super strong. Like we'll be able to do that in a very short period of time. So there's all sorts of moral and ethics sort of stuff that you'll see. You could edit out all sorts of future diseases and stuff like that. But in terms of investing in it, it's really high risk. Really high risk. Like, you no doubt, I think you're going to end up investing in 20, 50 companies, hoping that one of them booms, if that makes sense. So yeah, it's still very early days. I mean, there's a really good program on Netflix called, I forgot what it's called, but it's about CRISPR. I mean, there's a guy who's literally in his backyard has made glow-in-the-dark dogs. It's nuts.
I think I saw that. Is it that guy who is injecting himself?
Yeah, I don't think he's injecting himself, but that program has lots of other people, and yeah.
Okay,
but
I'll definitely check that out. That sounds great. Yeah.
So, so thanks, Tanvir. Right, I think we're going to have to call that a day. We've been sort of 40 odd minutes. So last question on the Facebook. Mark Pavade said, "Hi Simon, do you think the recent announcement on ending lockdowns will be the beginning of a market crash where there'll be more opportunities to grab businesses on the edge?" Maybe. I think there's too many variables. I think regardless, we have this other crash, this impending crash, which is unavoidable. And people thought March 2020 was bad. That was simply an hors d'oeuvre of what we're about to have. In terms of M&A and stuff, like I personally have paused all of my mergers and acquisitions for the next 18, 24 months. Like, we just don't know what's going to work well until the dust has settled. And the dust has not even settled from the 2020 kerfuffle. So, let alone what's going to happen after 2021. I just don't know. We can take some educated guesses, but for now, I'm simply hunkering down on what I do know that works, and I'll just give it a couple of years, and then we'll see what happens. So, but yeah, right. Thanks for those of us for joining us here today. Tomorrow, I'm not sure what topic we're going to do tomorrow. Evidently, we're not going to be discussing future ideas, opportunities, and emerging markets again, because no one turned up today, pretty much. not like normal ones. So I think it's just going to be a normal wealth generation chat tomorrow. And I will see you all soon. Cheerio. Bye-bye.